Lord, one day is Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. This is your update for Wednesday the 2nd. All right, let's go. Well, as far as setups, we actually have three of them in here tonight. They're all volatile, so be careful as usual and make sure you're waiting for entries. This AEVA, kind of a textbook type of TKO, I doubt seriously that it'll trigger, but it's worth a shot, I think, nonetheless, if it does trigger. BTM, that's crypto related. That's a little weakness in crypto today, so we'll see how that shakes out. And then VG, obviously, IPO is still super volatile. Not a great day. Kato's just a bit of a bummer. They're giving up most of those gains, and we'll get to that in just one second. Defense in general got whacked. Here is the AEVA, kind of the mother of all trend knockouts. Wait for entries, of course, and as usual. VG, again, a little bit on the volatile side. Obviously, IPO. HV78, I've seen worse. I think the AEVA is, what, 137. And then, of course, BTM is kind of crazy. Look at that, 127. So all these super volatile. Make sure you do wait for entries. Kind of odd that the IPO is the least volatile of them all. Anyway, TFPM, we're long, obviously. Still looks kind of interesting. It's kind of like a double top, triple top, minor triple top, kind of pullback, knockout type of move. KGC coming in a little bit after trying to rally. Unfortunately, we never really got close enough just yet to that IPT. If we start banging out some moves above, or we start trading well above 16, then obviously we'll be close enough to that IPT to consider taking profits. When it's having a hard time getting there, like it seems to be bumping up against some resistance, as you can see. So use that as kind of like a way to kind of look at whether or not you should take partial profits slightly early. And again, let it get well above 16 before you think about taking profits. Should you think about taking profits early? Let's take a look at the Katos. Kato's getting whacked a little bit of a bummer, but longer term still in a decent uptrend. So is the fence overall. In fact, let's take a look at the overall market and then we'll drill down. A few things I want to flesh out tonight. First of all, let's take a look at the P's. After all was said and done, a lot more was said than done. Pretty much Flatsville on the day. You know me, I sure like to see it bang out some new highs and not look back for a while. Here it comes, one day at a time. Nasdaq Composite, bit of a bummer coming back in, and it just recently broke out past these peaks, and not with a whole lot of vigor, so that is a bit of a bummer. But as I preach, when you're at a bit of an inflection point, a big up day can look really good, and a big down day, and this is just kind of a mediocre down day, but a big down day could look fairly ugly, so be careful not to get too excited one way or the other. Take a look at the Rusty finally waking up. Speaking of big up days, up 1%. Unfortunately, off its best levels, but we'll take it. Pushing or beginning to push back into this overhead supply, so that's obviously a good thing there. Take a look at financials. Decent day there. So there was some sector rotation happening, or certainly some stronger areas, and you can see. So financials closed at all-time highs. That's obviously a good thing. Retail also had a decent day. It's got some overhead, or it has some overhead, some resistance to get through, but you know the routine, one day at a time. But look at that, 3%. So that's certainly a good thing. Not all is great in the world, obviously. Cybercomputing stalling out a little bit. Cybersecurity, I mean. Stalling out a little bit. It just recently got past its prior high. Again, you know me, I like to see it break out and not look back for quite a while. And then have orderly pullbacks along the way. Robotics selling out fairly hard, so that resistance so far has been kind of tough to get through. Gold, the commodity, actually traded higher today. It's in sideways, shorter term trading range. Longer term, still in an uptrend, but you know me, I'd sure like to see some new highs sooner rather than later. There's the weekly chart. Sometimes it's important to take a look at the weekly just to see where we are for a little perspective. Gold stocks hitting in Flatsville after trying to rally, so that's a little bit of a bummer. Obviously, when you're long gold. Biotech, decent rally, but came back in by the end of the day. It's got its work out, cut out for it. Lots of overhead supply. Their software, that's another one of these areas that's stalling with a V-shaped recovery, so that's a bit of a bummer. But again, one big up day looks fantastic, and a big down day can look a little ugly there. Defense, as I mentioned earlier, got whacked fairly hard, but longer term, squint your eyes, looks pretty darn good. Take a look at the weekly, and you can see just a bit of a tiny bit of correction. Nothing to get too excited about just yet. Obviously, honor your stops just in case. Broker dealing in Flatsville, so far the breakout remains intact there. We could see some setups there on pullbacks, obviously. Semiconductor sold off fairly hard, but did recover to close off their worst levels. Still down 1% nonetheless, and not taken out, or it hasn't made it to brand new highs just yet. Nvidia stalling out, kind of interest there. You can see, again, I don't like these markets to stall out when they're just getting past their prior highs, but again, one day at a time, and a big update would certainly and obviously negate that. Platinum up a little bit. So far, a nice little uptrend remains intact there. A lot of other areas, though, like I said, kind of mixed day. So you can see that cloud computing stalling out a little bit below this overhead supply. But overall, things have been looking up as of late. Let's take a look at the banks real quick. Banks had a decent day. So today's performance was mixed, but we did have some areas that did fairly well, such as the banks. Uranium getting hit a little bit, but longer-term uptrend remains intact there. So, again, kind of a mixed day. With good to see some areas waking up. Unfortunately, some areas stalling out. So, again, a mixed day. Just make sure, of course, you wait for entries and obviously honor your stops once triggered. Everybody have a fantastic night. We'll talk to you tomorrow, if not sooner. Thank you so much.